So there seems to be some maybe interesting global change happening this week that is being led by the US, or at least influenced by them in some way. Watch the whole video for more information on that. Just a reminder that this is meant to be a mundane reading and not at all a personal sun sign or all signs kind of a forecast. Okay, so let's jump into the charts for this week. We're obviously going to start the week off here on Sunday, June 14th. And of course, this is when we're going to have this new moon happening in Gemini. You can see at the bottom of the chart here at 24 degrees. Now, okay, so new moon in Gemini. I do get a sense of there's, like political leaders. I get a sense of Trump. He always usually comes up speaking out or speaking like how he has the press conferences and things like that. That's what it is. But he's saying, like, there's an aspect of strong communication or whatever of that coming through here with this at this point. I feels like it relates to a lot of the past 2 weeks I've talked about like domestic, focus on domestic, and I feel like it's related to that again as well. There's a focus on domestic that comes through this. I get a sense of the fact that because Gemini deals with the local environment, but at the same time Mercury is in Cancer relating to the home front, and because this is mundane astrology, we're dealing with this on like a global a geopolitical, economical kind of a level. So what that boils down to is your local environment, and the home front would be the country as a whole. So if we're relating it directly to what I was seeing there with Trump speaking out, then it's relating to the US. However, this is likely relating in the same way to other countries as well, in the same way at the same time. Although I get a strong sense that the focus is in America on the US. There's a strong focal point there. There's something, it's like whatever is happening there is going to affect the rest of the world. Okay, and I think that's what carries in the message from the previous 2 weeks where we got domestic, and I feel like that can relate to other countries as well, but from what I get a sense now is it's maybe more related to that, and then how it affects like the rest of the world and everybody else in terms of focusing on themselves first. There's something about that plays in globally with the rest of the world in some way. And I'm not just talking on this new moon, I'm talking like in general in a lot of ways as well here, okay? So we're just going to leave it at that for this new moon in Gemini, and we'll kind of see what else plays out beyond that. We're also going to have Mercury here in semi-square to Uranus. So Mercury at 18 degrees of Cancer down here, Uranus at 2 degrees of Gemini. There's something about change. Again, I see Trump again, and what I get is there's communication involved, whether it's like the press conference, either on a podium or sitting in the White House, like how it usually happens, how we see it. Something like that. But this is very much about some aspect of movement forward, progress, change. I say very progressive, even though when you consider maybe his position or party position where they're more conservative, but this is about what I mean by progress is not in a political sense of what progressive is, but making actual progress to something. And I mean that when it comes to Aquarius as well, making actual progress towards things, movement forward, innovation, that kind of stuff. So what I get a sense of with that is speaking out about some kind of progress, but this is very quick. We have Uranus and Gemini, and I feel like there's a quickness to this in terms of whatever this progress is or whatever is being spoken about it in moving forward. And I get a sense of this is in relation to that new moon in Gemini and this focus on domestic stuff. I'm being drawn to the fact that, again, Gemini, your local environment, Mercury in Cancer, relating to the home front, as this is mundane astrology dealing with the country as a whole. In this case, directly, we're talking about the US. However, this can reflect obviously in other countries as well, but I'm being drawn back to the focus on the US for whatever reason, because what happens there is going to affect the rest of the world, and whatever that means, okay? We're also going to have Mars here in this quincunx to Black Moon Lilith. I don't know why I get a very strong sense of a focus on America, the US. I mean, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. But through this reading, for whatever reason, they're wanting me to focus specifically on US related stuff. Again, it boils down to whatever is affecting them, or whatever happens to them is then going to affect the rest of the world. Okay, so Mars, quincunx, Black Moon Lilith. There's an okay. Interesting. What I get a sense with this, and maybe this is why the focus on the US, is the US has been outcasted by a lot of the rest of the world. Okay, and it actually isn't just because of, people will say, oh, because that's Trump or the current term president. No, actually. This is, I mean, you could boil it down to that because of a lot of people's opinions on him, but this actually goes back much further than that, as it relates to a lot of the things the US has done. I mean, if you look at like certain wars, and I'm talking about things like the war in Iraq, where there was they said there was weapons of mass destruction, but there were no weapons of mass destruction. Or they say they're making, like, how there were excuses to do things when those things didn't really exist. It's like there was nefarious intent behind certain things, or the US being this almost like the biggest player in the game, but they weren't exactly the nicest player in the game. So things that are like that. And I'm not saying this about your average everyday American. I mean, like, I've been to the US. Most American people are really nice. Like, they're just people like everybody else, okay, in whatever country. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying this as like either political perception or as a military, or like this is like a geopolitical thing, and how other countries see them as a player in that game in a lot of ways. And what I get a sense is that they've kind of been outcasted in a lot of ways because of certain behaviors in certain ways. But let's get back to this quincunx. Because of that, there's a focus with Mars here in Taurus on taking action economically in ways that are more focused at home in the home front. And I'm being reminded again to say what happens here in the US will be a direct reflection, or maybe not reflection is not the right word. It will be a direct influence towards the rest of the world. Okay? But the focus is taking action towards, it feels like, material and economic things more at home, domestically, as in focusing, even if it's businesses or countries from like other countries, things like that, the focus is on taking action to provide, what I get a sense of is provide American jobs, or provide the focus on American stability, a focus. There's very much a domestic focus within that, whether it's manufacturing, within industry, okay, and economic industry, how that relates economically, and providing that stable foundation and taking action towards those things. And that is because of the outcastedness by the rest of the world. And I get a sense of as well that this relates to this aspect of tariffs, other things like that we've seen earlier on. And what I'm actually getting right now is that was done on purpose. The tariffs were done on purpose to cause a shift. I don't want to say solely domestically, that's only part of what is going on, to bring things back domestically. But there's more to this game. There's more to this game, is what I get a sense of, and I'm not privy to everything else that is going on. But there's more. It's like playing a game of like 3D chess, okay? And I get that there's more going on here than just that. And this is only, okay, they're saying this is one of the reasons as to why the tariffs exist, but we're not going to tell you anything else, or why they were done, or why whatever. But we can't tell you anything else, okay? So, and then there's now this shift towards domestic focus on economic things and such and everything, okay? We'll just leave it at that. Let's move on to Monday the 15th, because I don't want to. Anyway, we're going to have a Venus here aspecting the nodes. So there's going to be the semi-sextile to the south node and the quincunx to the north node. Okay, so there's a shift now from previous videos in terms of what I talked about in terms of Venus. This specifically now is what I get a sense of is there's people involved in higher levels of government, whether they're spokesmen for things or they're working like under the prime minister, president, like that kind of a thing. Okay, where the focus isn't solely on the US now. We've shifted beyond that. Seems like it was just the energy of what we wanted to see for yesterday. Okay, interesting. Now we've moved on. There's frustration here in moving forward because of certain things that have been brought to light. But these are things that are seems like they're being thrust in the spotlight by nefarious people or nefarious entities or whatever that don't want certain progress to move forward, because they don't want the old practical ways to be let go of because they benefit from them. Okay, and so there's a frustration here in moving forward on a new path, etc., that is positive and beneficial, even though it may be unknown. It's an unknown path. But it's like things are being brought to light in whatever way. It's not by the people that I mentioned earlier regarding whatever. They're the ones that are trying to either mitigate or deal with whatever has come out. We're dealing with Leo energy. This is like putting things into the spotlight. And this is basically what has been brought out into the spotlight that's kind of wreaked havoc or brought maybe a bit of chaos, or like, what, that happened? It's a lie or a mistruth. There may be some truth to it, but the story is being skewed in a negative direction so as to stop something from moving forward that actually would have been a positive thing for people. Okay, despite whatever, and now there are these people that are parts of government or work under presidents, prime ministers, whatever, that are trying to clear the air and say, no, this isn't this or whatever, and people aren't believing them, and it's creating a whole big mess relating to our path forward, because there's certain people that want to keep the old ways here, despite the fact that they're not benefiting for the people. They are for only for a certain group of people that benefit from those things. Yeah. Anyway, I won't get too much into that. Venus is also going to be in this quintile to Mars. Okay, now we're getting back to previous videos where I talked about there was a group of people working and doing on certain things. Okay, and I think I need to stop for a second and just take a minute here to be like, well, you said this was about this and now it's about that. Go to my website, mysticalmark.ca. Okay, at the very top of the page, there's a little introductory paragraph, and then it says, what is astrology? You click that link and you read that page on what has been guided to me on astrology, and understand it even is in the little paragraph before you click the link that it is how this is used. Astrology doesn't happen to you. It's not just there and then all of a sudden it forces you into situation. It's how it is used. This energy is used by everyone through certain energetic cycles, and read that page because there goes into details in which I can't hear. Go to that. Understand that it's how this energy is used. So in one way, there's nefarious people that were using this energy in a certain way and now it's trying to be deflected. In another way, we're going back to how this energy was used prior to that, okay? And again, this can be with you personally as well. You have choice, you have free will. My guidance has been astrology is like an energetic template, like a math formula with variables, and you get to adjust those variables. Okay? Astrology doesn't happen to you, it is how it is used. Go to my website and read all that for more information. I'm not going to go further in depth. Now back to the reading. Okay, so with this quintile to Mars, we're now dealing, and watch the previous videos about this group of people if you want to know what I'm talking about. I don't even fully know what I'm talking about. This is just the guidance coming through. This is not going to come through the news. This is not going to be aware in any way regarding this energy right now. Because we're not seeing it for what it is yet. However, there is this group of people working behind the scenes. There's something that's being brought to light where they're really able to push forward and take action on certain things that which will maintain some aspect of grounded stability for what they're about to project into the world or solutions that they're creating here. We're not going to see it yet, we're not going to understand that yet, but there's very much behind the scenes energy and work going on here. Venus will also be in sextile to Uranus. Now, we're outside of this group that is working on, and this is something now that is completely different. Again, this energy is being used in a completely different way. I get a relation back to US politics again, specifically not Trump, but the people that are around him or some type of people that he's got working for him or that help it or something along these lines. And it's about making progress in something that they've been working on. And it's being brought to the light, into the spotlight, and being shown for whatever reason. What the vision in my head was, you know, when they sign those executive orders or whatever, and they have like that, they're in the White House and it's sitting at the desk, and there's those people that are lined up like behind them, and you see there's like all the reporters in front, and then everybody's watching. It's that. It's like that, about says bringing something to light and discussing something. There's other people there that are maybe talking about whatever. It may not be specifically on this day as these transits peak and wane, but it's likely to happen at around this time in the week in whatever way. Okay, so that is Monday. Let's move on to Tuesday the 16th. Okay, we're going to have the Sun here now in this quintile to Saturn. We're now back to domestic focus within the US. There's a focus, there's boundaries that have been set regarding independence, sovereignty, etc. The focus is on themselves. And there's communication or awareness coming to light through that. Based on, and the work that has been happening behind the scenes with this quintile is what I get a sense of this work that has been happening behind the scenes in relation to this energy here. it's like things have been being worked on and now they're being talked about, the results of such things, and it's about setting certain aspects of boundaries to focus on themselves, sovereignty, independence, etc. It relates a lot still to that domestic type of energy, but there's stuff that has been worked on that is now coming to light for whatever reason. We're also going to have Mercury here in this quincunx to Black Moon Lilith here in Sagittarius. What I get a sense of with this is now it feels like the rest of the world is feeling outcasted. There's this odd energy this week. It seems like between almost like the US and then like the rest of the world. Okay, initially it was the US that feels outcast, or was deemed as outcast. Now it's the rest of the world that's deemed as outcast, and it feels like because of some aspect of success that exists within the US. I don't know. I don't specifically know or understand. I do these like days out. Like, so like I don't know. I mean, I have no idea, but there's okay, it's relating to some aspect of awareness or communication surrounding the home. This, in this sense, home or the home front feels like the US, as they would be addressing it. And to the rest of the world is feeling outcasted, and there's a frustration here because of some aspect of success surrounding whatever it is that they're doing. And the rest of the world that hated on them for it or for other things are now being like, oh shit, they were right. It's something like that. There's a frustration that exists here. And then it leads to this focus. What I'm getting with this Mercury in Cancer again, this more of like domestic focus again. There's a huge theme for these past few weeks with Mercury in Cancer here, the domestic focus. So we're also going to have the Sun here in this sesqui-square to Juno retrograde. So Sun in Gemini, Juno here obviously in Aquarius. Sesqui-square is like a super square, can't be swept under the rug any longer. There's a sense of awareness here, and it's surrounding everything that I kind of just talked about. And it's almost like, okay, we have to relook and rework and relook at our partnerships. It's not necessarily right away setting new deals or making the change right away, but it's having a look at connecting and disconnecting in certain ways. And it's like, okay, we can't ignore this any longer. We really have to look at this. And somehow it relates to the US and what they've done. I don't know what this is. I don't fully know why or understand, but that's what I feel like that is. Okay, we're also going to have the North Node here in this quintile to Black Moon Lilith. Because of whatever this pressure is in terms of the rest of the world feeling outcasted, it has now pushed them to move in the new direction, even though it may be unknown or completely new. It's almost like following the path of America, following the path of the US. That's what I get a sense of with this, following that path. Even though it's unknown and new to them and they don't maybe fully realize it, it's kind of like they don't have a choice. With this quintile, it's kind of like this inner knowing or deeper behind the scenes understanding of what they have to do. It may not be publicly seen or it may be said about in some way, but there's more going on behind the scenes, the work to put in with this in whatever way, because the people have felt outcasted in whatever way, and they realize they have to follow the same path in order to not be outcasted. Interesting. We're also going to have Venus. There we go. Sorry, the mic's in the way of my screen, so you guys can't see that, but I can. Venus in trine to Neptune. This relates back to that group of people again that are doing the work behind the scenes to build, create, find solutions for things, whatever. And they're getting help. They're getting help from unknown sources, from hidden sources, from those almost like advisors or something that are helping them to really become successful at what they're doing. But that aspect of it is hidden. There's some aspect of support. What I get a sense of is this masculine energy support, but there's support. It relates to that Aries energy. There's action and support there, support for this action, but it comes from a hidden or unknown place. They know it, but everybody else really doesn't, and even when whatever this is comes out, they're not going to understand that that's where this stuff came from. But there's help and assistance there in them and bringing things to light for them to build and create whatever solution that they're working on. Eventually we'll know and understand this. What that is now, I have no idea. Let's move on now to Wednesday the 17th. And we're going to have Venus here in sesqui-square to Black Moon Lilith, as well as Venus will be in opposition to Pluto retrograde. This again feels like the rest of the world being outcasted. They're aware that they've almost been screwed over for a reason, to make them aware of certain things and to be pushed in maybe in a certain direction. Okay, how does this specifically relate to Venus and Leo, though? Okay, there's people involved at certain government levels, certain things that are now being like, oh shit, now yeah, we got to take action, we got to do this. It's like the people that work for the president, prime ministers, etc., those kinds of things, and those people are now trying to fix and mitigate those things based on what has been brought to light, or they're now being put into the light. Okay, what are you going to do about this now, kind of thing. And with his opposition to Pluto, it's based on, okay, how are we going to deal with this? We have to face this for what it is now. It has been re-brought up, Pluto retrograde, re-brought up. We now have to face this thing. How are we going to transform it to become better out the other side and make appropriate, proper progress towards proper connections, humanity, world, whatever, that kind of stuff, all at the same time? Okay, so these two are kind of playing off each other in this energy, this sesqui-square and this opposition. All right, and so that's what I get a sense of with that on Wednesday. It may not be exactly on Wednesday, it could come before or a bit after. It feels like it builds up a lot before, and then we see it come out more after the fact. Let's move on to Thursday the 18th. We're going to have Pluto in semi-square to Black Moon Lilith, and it feels like the instant that I saw this, it's exactly related to what I said about yesterday with that Venus energy. Now this energy is connected, okay, and so we're dealing with, in order, they're kind of shunned or outcasted for a reason, the rest of the world, because they need to make they need to see something for what it is and make proper change. They need to properly transform, face it, fix it. They're being forced to look at something in order to make real progress and change and moving forward, to not be outcasted again. Again, this is how this energy is used. Yeah. Okay, we're also going to have the Sun here in this semi-sextile to Jupiter. I'm like, what? 27, yeah. It's just off on the, I'm like, looking at the chart, you can see that it's a bit wonky over here, but Jupiter still is in Cancer. Okay, so this Sun in semi-sextile to Jupiter. There's very big awareness now on what countries have to do to not be outcast and to focus on themselves. It's almost like a push inward to focus on themselves. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, where we're dealing with global, more expansive things, countrywide countries and how they interrelate with things like that. And in Cancer, relating to the home front, I talked about this aspect of domestic energy. The Sun's still in Gemini, relating to this aspect of awareness. A lot of what I get with Gemini is this aspect of awareness, through communication or otherwise, but this aspect of awareness. And this is really expanding this, oh shit, this is what we have to do. And it's almost like a turn inward to focus on themselves, to fix something, to face something and fix it in order to be able to be a part of the global whole again in whatever way. Okay, so that's Thursday the 18th. Let's move on to Friday here. And of course, nothing really major except one thing is we're going to have the Chiron moving into Taurus. Okay, Chiron and Taurus. We're dealing a lot with moons to material things, where it feels very physically, but that can obviously relate economically as well. But it definitely relates to wounds to our material things, value, worth, that kind of stuff. This is mundane astrology, so we're talking this on a global level. This is relating how countries interrelate to each other through these material things, whether they be trade, economics. Feels more like also like the physical stuff that's in the country, like industries like manufacturing and all of that kind of stuff. It's like healing the wound, facing the wound of that, and now looking at it and be like, oh, we got to look at healing this. What I'm getting now as well is what I've talked about for the previous part of the week building up to this point is relating to this ingress now of Chiron coming in Taurus. And taking a look at what the US is doing and maybe being more domestically focused in certain areas and focusing on bringing manufacturing back to them. That kind of stuff that is going on in terms of how they're healing that. And then the rest of the world is like, oh shit, maybe they've got the right idea and we've got to go on to this. It's like they've already kind of seen it and we're trying to nip it in the bud before Chiron comes into Taurus and sees this wound. And they're kind of leading the example for the rest of the world to now follow in some way. I don't fully understand all of the details to this. I'm only get so much, because if we were told exactly what would happen, then why would we be living the experience, right? So, yeah. That's Friday. Let's move on to Saturday the 20th. And we're going to have the Sun here is going to be in this biquintile to Pluto retrograde. Sun at 29 degrees of Gemini as well. There's a very strong like oh shit moment. Oh. It's kind of like an oh shit moment through awareness. And it leads to this almost like inner focus. But what that is in this mundane level is behind the scenes, like, okay, we've got to take care of this, whatever. It's like on the facade of things, you see things as like functioning, all like things look normal, but on the inside there's people running around their offices and being like, oh, we got to work on this and do all of that because of an awareness. And as it relates to whatever this Pluto is brought up through its retrograde and re-reviewing these old things and what has happened, what I've talked about in this previous week that now needs to be faced, transformed in order to make appropriate, proper progress in doing certain things through whatever this awareness is. But this is more of like an internal focus, in a countrywide level. So that's politically or business-wise in terms of the actual people that are involved working behind, like in those things, like people that work for the president, like in the offices or in the, like that kind of an energy, where they're like, oh shit, you know, now we got to deal with this. Okay, that's what that feels like. Very interesting week. Please, nobody take this the wrong way. I do not have any kind of political affiliation with anyone. Like I said, I'm Canadian. I'm not even American, so I'm just as outcasted as everybody else in the world through this reading, I guess. But yeah, that is, I mean, we'll just see how it plays out, right? Yeah, that's all I really have to say about this week's stuff. If you do want a personal reading with me, all those links are in the description below, or you can head on over to my website, mysticalmark.ca. And yeah, that's about all I have to say for this week. If you made it this far in the video, please leave a please leave a purple heart in the comments so that I know you're a real one. And I hope to see you all in next week's video. Take care, everyone. Bye.